are now aggressing on my private property. So it's not your right. If it's your home and you create and the fire comes from your home, that's your responsibility. Those are your liabilities. So you can let your house burn to the ground if that's what you want. If that's what you want to do.
What is the enforcement?
I am trying to explain.
No, you're not. You're running away from it, doing your bullshit fucking rambling. Ramble, and then you're gonna try to say something.
I'll come back to the room. I'll come back to the room when Brad's gone. I'd love to have this discussion. I'd love to have the discussion.
Listen, let her finish. I know it takes her a little while to get a point across, but let her finish at least.
No, it's okay. I'm gonna use my freedom of association. I'll be back, and I hope that everybody that's in this room would like to continue the discussion. I'll be in here when Brad leaves. I'll be here when Brad leaves. Thank you.
What are you doing?
So that's okay. I'd love to be able to have that conversation. When Brad's gone, I'll come back.
Please go, Shem. Go back to the ocean and try not to get harpooned by a whale.
Carmelo Anthony. Let's do a room replay called "How to Survive a Routine Track Meet," about the dysfunctional assholes who think bringing a knife to an argument is a good idea.
Can I make one observation about the room today? Wait. I want to make one observation to Brad, and then a potential topic, room topic. So one, for those who have been here all day, right? Like earlier, Chris was taking the stance of the state should take care of everybody for everything. I shouldn't have to work. And if people remember, I actually was kind of opposed to that. I was like, no, you have to fucking put in your work to eat, right? And what's funny about this is actually the opposite side of that, right? This is because, and even then I was trying to be nuanced with it of like, yeah, you have to allow for this blend, right? Where when it comes to the tragedy of commons, or whenever there are things where game theory comes into play, I actually do think it makes sense, right? There are certain things where it does make sense for the government to provide those options. And Brad is also taking that stance as well, right? Fire department, police enforcement, roads, et cetera, right? We can name those things. There are certain things where it does make sense to treat them as a commons and to have the government do it. The question is what's the limit of that, right? Should food be a commons, right? Housing. Some people think housing. Some people say housing is a right, right? In which case, all houses should be commons, right? And I would disagree with that. And so it is about finding the demarcation there. And I think it's interesting because today, at least, I think at least what I heard were two extremes where I disagree with both, right? Like, oh, there should be nothing. There should be no commons. The fire department, you either pay for it or you're fucked, or we're gonna force it on you. Or the opposite side, which I also think is too extreme, is everything, right? Like, no one should have to work. Everybody should be taken care of. If they can't work, we're going to take care of everybody. And I think that's the other side of the extreme. The one parting thought I'd have, and this is, people can reject this, because it's a total conversation topic shift, is I'm curious if anybody else in their TikTok feed has seen a major takeover of Chinese manufacturers in their TikTok feed.
Yes.
Because I find it really fascinating.
Crazy.
It is amazing.
Here's where your Hermes bag is made. Yeah, I've seen.
It is taken over my feed, and it's like, it is both interesting in like the sense of propaganda, and also I think it's a showing of a hand in a way. I think it actually proves Trump's point in some respects, because going direct to consumer in that way and cutting out the brands that in theory technically hold the IP for it is breaking free trade agreements. They are actually violating FTA if this is a sanctioned move, and it is modern propaganda warfare, which is fascinating that it's being done through social media so blatantly.
Agreed, dude.
What's so blatantly? It's always been that way, bro.
Yeah, but this is like in your face. Like, my feed is like, why am I getting random Chinese manufacturers talking to me about how to buy sneakers? I'm like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck is this? In what way, shape, or form did I ask for this? None, right? They're just forcing that down everybody's throats right now.
Dewey, you
get the ones where there's basically some people suggesting that you can create a new business where you basically fly to China.
Yes, I saw that. I was like, who the fuck is gonna do that? That is fucking desperate.
My feed is filled with like all these fucking knives and axes and all this shit, like all of like tomahawks, tents, fucking sleeping bag, pad, all the hiking outdoor gear. It's filled, and now it's like direct here. You can just buy it this way through us and come right here, and we'll save you. Like literally, I have a one knife. They're like, come buy this Vici knife, and I'm why would I do that? And they're like, it's 30 V steel and blah blah blah. It's sandy grind. Buy it, and they're like, it's $10, and I'm going, motherfucker, that's cheap, but I'm not buying your shit.
Dude, they I forgot who was that was just saying it about this like they have TikTok videos about how you can go get a 10 or 15-day visa, right? Buy a bunch of shit, claim it as personal items, and then bring it back and then sell it at a profit. They're basically like trying to convince you to buy a $2,000 ticket to fly to China to do a bunch of quote unquote personal shopping, to like cut out all the middlemen and then sell the Louis Vuitton bags. And I'm just like, what the fuck kind of that is direct to consumer, a violation of FTA, and just like. One, again, it is. If anything, it makes Trump's point in that like this system cannot be trusted. The second there's pressure, they're just gonna break all the agreements and be like, nah, fuck that. And it's weird. I don't know. It's just a small side note weirdness. I don't want it to kill the room, but I just wanted to see if anybody else was experiencing it and if anybody else had thoughts.
It's on Instagram too. If you watch some of the Instagram, because all of my like right now, I'm just exploring parks. And for the record, for those of you. Get yourself the free week of Paramount. I think it's Paramount or whatever. And during Earth Week, all the national parks are being streamed. The National Park Service has, oddly enough, despite all the cutbacks, they are streaming walkthroughs of all the national parks within the country. So if you ever wanted to figure out if you like the place, if you want to go visit it or whatever, they're going to stream that right to your TV, and you can watch it. You can pick sectors to kind of go to and see that there. And it's a lot better than having some YouTube or some fucking TikTok fucking idiot talking about how great it is in a perfect moment after 40 shots. These are just literally live streams of what's going on in the park right now, so you can see without any kind of filters what the fuck is going on and how good the trail is.
It seems like we're moving on, but I wanted to push back on Biba's position. I think she's a little bit confused as to how voluntarism actually works. I think she's got the general spirit down, but like there's no scenario in which you're justifying like it's a fine. It's from a different force that's not coercive force. It's a non-coercive force, which isn't a thing. Look, it's a matter of personal responsibility. If your neighbor plays loud music and you don't like it, you don't get to call the cops and have them go over there and issue a fine and use force and coercion to essentially strong arm your neighbor. You just move. You move. You take adult accountability and you acknowledge the fact that you've chosen to set up your homestead where there's other humans and you're willing to accept the consequences of potentially being near humans you don't like. And either you deal with that and you get a white noise machine and you drown it out, or you.
Still, you know what it reminds me of? It's those far-right Christian nationalist conservatives that they identify as. They sit there and say, this is how we can reconstruct society, and we'll eliminate all the problems that we're currently bitching about. We shouldn't have taxes. We shouldn't have this. And it reminds me of their plan, which I am wholeheartedly against. Like, if they came up and had a candidate that said this, I'd be like, fuck no, you guys are fucking morons. That's not going to work. It won't.
Sorry, go ahead.
But what her idea seems to come off of like fucking YouTube videos where the guy spends like it's who's that idiot? It's like Alex Jones spewing off some bullshit for 10 minutes and she's just swallowing it hook, line, and sinker, saying, well, we could do this and we could do this, and then as she goes along and gets pushback, her argument starts to fall apart, and then she just, well, you guys are just too toxic to me. I need to leave. And
this is the reason why Knowledge and her lost this free speech argument, because she used the exact same argument, not understanding the enforcement or the coercion. She's doing that, and thank you, Stilgar, for coming around and being on our side on this one.
Look, I'm with Dewey on this. The solution is somewhere in the middle, right? Because when you look at like things like unchecked statism, there's nasty consequences on that side too, right? Like this idea that I have to get a sticker put on my car every 12 months to prove to the government that my car is roadworthy. And like, single moms have to decide, like, do I want groceries this month, or do I want to get my state permission sticker stuck on my car to say that I can drive down the highway? And we sometimes often create, solutions in seeking a problem, and it puts people at a disadvantage. And the car inspection thing is a very small example, but there's tons and tons of these examples. The idea that, like, in modern society in the United States, you can't truly ever own your property. government requires you to pay the taxes. If you don't pay the taxes, they're going to take it away from you. I guess some places you don't have to pay property taxes, but those are few and far between. So I think the solution lives somewhere in the middle. I'm all for the personal accountability piece. I want people to stop outsourcing every single one of their problems to the state. Take accountability. Own your own behavior. You don't get to dictate what everybody around you gets to do for your own comfort and convenience. You know, if you don't like your neighbor parking in your street parking spot because you think it's your spot, well, you should have bought a house with a fucking driveway.
But society can have all these individual independent actors that all have private property rights, and they can all utilize this social preference to isolate and minimize people's voices and, well, their preferences.
Samoa, to your argument point, it's like this. What I hear today from Chris Tabima is they want to be the power group. Them and the people that they associate
That's
with.
a fact.
They want to be the power control. And like, I'll take someone who's opposite of me is Lou. Like, everybody knows Louie and I bang heads, we crash together. But neither of us would generally go along with either of these positions here and stating that because you're outside the group, I'm going to be able to reap some kind of punishment. And I'm going to have this. Nor do we want the government to actually control every fabric of our day, nor be responsible for taking everything that I have to pay for a mass that sits there and has soft hands and sits in a couch and just contemplates the meaning of life all day. We don't want either of those. We're in the middle, doing the same thing. We probably have very, very vast disagreements, but we're not willing to sacrifice the core principles and say, no, your society has been tried. We deem this a failure because we have seen it fail repeatedly throughout history. And so, like, I don't know where to go. I'm with Dewey, I'm with you, and I'm with multiple other people who say, no, this isn't the way.
Well, and the problem is that nobody here wants to dig their own well. Nobody wants to make their own septic tank. Nobody wants to, people are happy. Speak for yourself. To pay their taxes. Well, Nathan, we all know you shoot a hole in the ground.
Nathan,
I know somebody in Indiana who draws water from a well, and they will not drink the tap water that comes from it.
But so still,
they have to shower in it, but they will not drink it.
So still, think about your own well purpose. Like, you still have to have an enforcement mechanism for that well, because what if you drill your well and you're tapping into that ground reservoir, but I don't know,
yeah,
a mile
somebody else
away,
is creating runoff in the well. Yeah, no, I get it. You move.
Or you're pouring poison down it. You got some manufacturer, a leather manufacturer, who's tanning hides and puts trichloroethylene down into the water supply. Now all of a sudden you have a major fucking problem because you're going to glow in the dark, your insides are going to melt, and you're going to shit your fucking colon out.
Yeah, that happens now. That happens now.
You're right, it does. And under her society, that would happen more frequently. Like, Love Canal would literally become a fucking massive wave.
Right, but
because you can sue them with their Justice Premium Plus plan.
And you say, hey, look, I'm in a bad place. I need to go to a better place. The end. Look, you're preaching to the choir. I come from, the largest natural gas shale in the country, and sometimes people's tap water becomes flammable. Like, this is a thing that happens. And it's unfortunate, but it's also a human reality that not all places are suitable for where you are, and you don't get to be where it is suitable unless you are willing to make that happen.
The thing that gets me is that people treat private property, at least the way she describes it, as if, like, these are, like, fucking plug-and-play things, when private property is stationary, right? Like, so, like, if you don't like what's happening in your quote-unquote, like, voluntary association in your free property, your private property, that means that you have to literally abandon your house. You have to abandon all that land. You have to go to a different association and hope that you can purchase more private property in that association. And then, there are questions of, do I still own the private property in the association I left? I don't know. Like, these things, I don't know. Land is too stationary for shit like this.
Yeah, so then you just tie your horse up to your buggy and you sing romantic songs and you wheel your ass to.
That's funny still, Gar. But I mean, like, the whole thing is, like, I'm telling you, like, I don't like the system. I don't like paying taxes. I don't think we should have to pay property taxes year after year. I'm against that. Do I have a better solution? No, I don't. I don't know how to keep the services going because, again, we allowed the government under FDR and multiple other presidents expand, including our state. And prior to that, we allowed states and towns to basically take total control of your own private property. First off, you don't have private property. You don't own anything. If the government wants to implement eminent domain, it's going to take it from you. And it doesn't have to pay. We can pay you a penny on the dollar. If you really want proof of this, and you think it doesn't exist, I don't know where to tell you. Go look at a history book. I'm sure there's a lot of people, particularly on Clubhouse, that'll tell you about eminent domain. But even still, the government can remove you, like what happened at Love Canal. The areas around 3 Mile Island. The government can come in and say you can no longer live here. It's too toxic. You lose everything. The government doesn't have to give you back that money. And for that belief that you can just turn around and sue and get compensation, that company has more money than you. Who's going to be the arbiter to afford that? That company doesn't have to exist within the constitutional framework. It can buy out juries. Who's going to be the enforcement mechanism for the judicial system? Who's going to enforce them to pay? If you say, oh, well, you poisoned my well, you owe me $1 million. Well, who's to make them pay? What enforcement mechanism is? And every time you start going down the tunnels and taking these theories on, every time you have the people like Be Mine Chris, they just fold and they're like, oh, you guys are being mean to me. Like, fuck your feelings. You stated this principle, and you called it voluntarism, and it's not even that. It wasn't that. Like, Stilgar said it, I said it, Dewey said it. Everybody kept contradicting and saying, you're not advocating for what you think you are, and you don't know this shit. And stop quoting Alex Jones.
It's crazy because she's just advocating living in a town. That's what it is. She's just advocating for like a village state, a town, a city state, whatever you want to call it. Like she just, I don't know. I don't know. It sounds like that, but like she also wants little tiny corporations to handle day-to-day functions, and that shit just, I don't know. The town part, I'm like, you're not really saying much, and then the corporation things, it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's my studying of history. I feel like plutocracy is a bad idea, but whatever.
That's why libertarians always fall. And I always ask the same libertarians, where is fucking Aleppo? Because that's the closest you guys ever came to any prominence, and that was the best you could fucking do. Was Gary, what's his name, from the Libertarian Party, when he was asked a question about the ongoing conflicts and the issues in Aleppo, and Gary turned around as a candidate for president and said, what is Aleppo? And didn't know the answer. And that's how confused and idiotic libertarians truly are.